Ask Reddit by yes. What's the worst thing a teacher has done or said to you or someone else? In my high school there was a teacher that told a newly diagnosed diabetic girl she couldn't check her blood sugar in class. Pretty good way to get charged with manslaughter. Called me a crybaby for crying about my deceased father. I was in the 2nd grade. Damn. I'm sorry. In kindergarten, my teacher held a coloring competition. I took so much time using crayons to color within the lines. She looked at mine and called it scribble scrabble. I still resent that bitch 30 years later. This sort of reminds me when I was about 14 and I asked my art teacher how I was doing, and she replied with pure confidence and smugness whether it'd be good if a child did it. Bitch. One of my former colleagues before he got fired told a kid who stuttered, "Get my cock out of your mouth and say that again." EU. 3rd grade. Everyone had to spend the day with their faces on the desk. Your forehead and nose had to literally touch the desk unless she was speaking directly to you or you were doing a worksheet. Fuck you, Mrs. Knight. Your husband died just to get away from you. I mean, I got a laugh out of it. But that's gotta be one of those what the fuck? How was that allowed to happen memories. You did this too fast. You must have cheated. I had to beg my mom not to go to the school to complain. Looking back, I should have let her go raise hell. That teacher was a bitch. Oof, that reminds me of mine. For our reading class back in elementary school, we had to do a homework assignment. I finished a few days before it was due, so I left it in the teacher's mailbox in the office, thinking she would just pick it up. So the day it's due, I of course don't have mine. I tell her it's in her mailbox and she basically says, "I don't believe you, you failed the assignment." She wouldn't even let me go down to the office to go get it and prove it was done. I told my mom, who did in fact raise hell. I got in trouble for saying Chad was a country. Similarly, in 5th grade our teacher had a short segment on philosophy. He was talking about Socrates but pronouncing it Socrates. I told him how it was pronounced, because my mom was a huge history nerd and could tell you everything about every famous philosopher. I got sent to the principal's office immediately. I asked what I did wrong. I was just saying how it's pronounced. Principal told me that I was right in the pronunciation but that correcting my teacher showed a lack of respect for authority blah blah and sent me home. My mom came to the school the next morning and tore them a new butthole each. Our headmistress threw a girl over the fence by her hair. Oh shit, she got the trunchbull. That I would grow up to be a useless burden on society. Well, don't leave us in suspense. We had a pop quiz, which was an in-class essay. Teacher wrote a sentence on the board and said write an essay. I did, and he gave me 0. I asked why and he said it's too good for you, you couldn't have written this. I asked how I could have cheated if I didn't know there was a test and I wrote the essay in front of him. He said I don't know but you definitely did. This teacher also called me by my friend's name and my friend by my name. I hope he got hit by a bus. Fucking prick. All my other teachers were great so it didn't poison me with all teachers. Fun fact. Another teacher in the English department wrote a play that I attended and that teacher was the main villain. Another teacher's husband wrote a short film and the story was about a professor who sleeps with his student had the same name as my teacher. Everybody hated this asshole. I once wrote an entire essay, spent days writing it just for the teacher to throw it out. Her excuse was, "This isn't a good essay, you need to redo it." I was in 3rd grade. Fucking bitch, man. Worst thing a teacher did to me was smash my dreams. I was in 4th grade, maybe, drawing. And my art teacher saw me and said, "Well, I know the one thing you'll never be is an architect." Guess what my dream job was at the time? Like, why the fuck would say that to a child? Please tell me you at least do something like that, even if it's a hobby. A teacher literally told me to kill myself. It was during the class, lol. I was too young to tell if he was being serious, like 12, but he was angry AF. How did everyone else react? When I was in kindergarten I was locked in the coat room because I mistook my left for right. Never forgot after that. Middle school English teacher first day of class. You are too young to have formed any worthwhile opinions. Therefore you will keep your opinion to yourself. The persuasive writing unit was a sadistic psychops aimed at destroying any iota of adolescent self-esteem. By that logic, kids are too young to know if they like apples more than oranges, or they like purple more than green. What a dumb bitch. My chemistry teacher in high school laughed in my face and said, "Oh, that's funny," when I told her I was thinking about majoring in chemistry. I got my BS in chemistry and several research accolades just to prove that bitch wrong. Now I am a high school teacher myself. I do everything and anything for my students that I can so they do not have a similar experience. My math teacher senior year was talking shit about my friend and how dumb she was to the other students in my class who didn't like the girl and were always picking on her. I stopped the teacher in the middle of the conversation and told her I was going to fight her on my last day of school, even if it meant I couldn't walk at graduation. She got pregnant right at the end of the year, so I obviously couldn't. Years later the teacher's mother-in-law came into my place of work. She gave me her last name and I asked if she knew the teacher and her face went sour. I told her I hated her and we bonded over how awful she was. Also, a history teacher choked a kid out in the hallway in that same high school. Deleted. If you don't go outside and play with the other children, when you grow up, you'll be a cripple in a wheelchair. Said to me when I was 5. School starts young where I'm from. Because I had bad asthma, so I was reading in the library instead of running around. Fucked up on so many levels. Deleted. My golf instructor called me a pervert in front of the whole class. I got up to use the bathroom but the men's room was locked, so I knocked and then went and used an empty women's room. I was 9 years old and probably would have had an accident if I didn't go right away. But when I walked out of that women's bathroom, the teacher was right there outside the door to scream at me. He had security with him and made a big scene out of it. When we both went back to the group, he told the rest of the golf class that I was a pervert and liked to use the ladies' room so I could watch girls pee. Of course everybody laughed. I was so embarrassed I told my parents I wasn't going back and to tell my grandfather I was sorry that I wasn't going to use the clubs or the lessons he bought me. I never told them why until my wife brought it up over a birthday dinner at their house a couple years ago. I'm over it now, but as a kid it bothered me for years. Grade 1. Kid was having trouble doing 2 + 2, not kidding. Teacher slammed his head onto the table. Came to school the next day with a huge dump and bruising. Schooling in Africa was tough. That is scary like Scarai. One of my teachers gave us a writing assignment on what it means to be Australian. I wasn't born here, so I asked, what if we're not Australian? Her response? Well, maybe you should go back to where you came from. Then went on a pretty racist rant about immigrants. I mentioned this during dinner that night. My dad called the principal to told him he's going to be at the school at 8:30 AM and to have my teacher in his office for a meeting. I got called into that meeting to give my side of the story. It was super awkward. My dad pretty much put my teacher in her place. She was fucking squirming. This teacher hated me from the get-go but all of a sudden was asking all nice. I'm sure she was doing it out of interest and not because the principal was right in front of her. Hilarious, especially knowing that the Europeans immigrated to Australia fairly late in the game. Not me, but a friend. A music teacher once told him music isn't supposed to be fun. My guy would go on to play in well-respected metal and indie bands in the 2000s. Nothing huge, but locally recognized and did some international touring. He's a very talented guitar player, and had lots of fun playing music. Fuck you, Miss James. This makes zero sense. Middle school history class. My family was homeless and moved around a lot while my parents tried their damnedest to find a solid spot to land. Basically made homework and studying really fucking hard, especially having no light in a tent, etc. One time I was in a position to crush it and bring my grades back up. I had a history exam coming up and went hard studying. On the day of the test my mom surprised me at school with McDonald's for lunch. This was a huge expense and a good luck hug. I felt like I breezed through it, knew all the answers, fucking nailed it. When the test came back, every single question was marked wrong, just a sea of red. I thought no way I got every single thing wrong. Took it to the teacher's assistant and asked him to double check. He found I mostly aced it and told the teacher. She said that little shit isn't going anywhere in life anyway. I'm not changing his grade. I have no idea why she even called me a little shit. I was a quiet kid, never caused trouble, and tried hard when I had the means. She was just used to seeing my lower grades and decided I wasn't worth any effort. Teachers in the US seem to have way too much power. Well, there was the time in 3rd grade I asked to go to the office because I felt sick and got told to sit down and be quiet. This happened several times and at some point I fell asleep. When school was over I blacked out while walking to the car. My temperature was 106.4. So almost killing me probably rates pretty high on worst thing. Then there was the time a single teacher decided to single me out as a troubled kid and found reasons to have me sent to the office or suspended over and over. Throughout my time in school I was never suspended, removed from class, or sent to the office by another teacher. This one was responsible for me being suspended 50+ days that year. Bonus bit. Her husband was later murdered in a drug deal in which he was selling meth. Turns out my friend's dad knew him in college and dude had always been a drug dealer. But me, the kid with longer hair and a tendency to wear black, was somehow a problem to her. God, it's been ages and I still hate that woman. I had a panic attack in class and the bitch asked if I could cry quieter or get out. When I was in the 4th grade, I lost a paper and searched for it inside my desk. My teacher got really mad, picked up my desk and hurled it across the room. She made me miss lunch and pick up all my things. I was so afraid to go home and tell my parents because I felt like I'd done something bad. Eventually, they found out because other kids had gone home and told their parents what had happened.